been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm
The Packers suffered a devastating home loss to the Carolina Panthers, falling 16-13 in a game that exposed critical flaws across, basically all phases. Coming off a pretty dominant performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers, specifically in the second half, this game was a complete letdown against, realistically, is a pretty inferior opponent. Packers do fall to 5-2-1. They are still first in the NFC North despite this. But had some really bad losses now to Cleveland and Carolina, at Cleveland, at home against the Panthers, and then to make insult to injury, literally. We'll see. I really hope it's just an MCL by God's good grace. But Tucker Kraft could potentially be out with an ACL for the rest of this year, and then I would assume that would go into next year and some change. And that's just absolutely brutal. I talked a little bit about this with Jordan when we were doing the predictions for this game, and I said that this is one of the more frustrating 5-1-1 teams at that point that I had seen, just a lot of the inconsistencies. And I believe that's the type of team that we got today. All sorts of inconsistent across the board, and then execution, from the players was not good. The game plan was not good, and then getting a couple turnovers, losing the turnover battle, that's obviously not good too as well. So, man, there is just a lot to get into. Just extremely disappointed, I guess I should say. And then, we're 5-2-1. Totally understand that. I believe the line did just come out. The Packers are favored to beat the Eagles by -2.5 points. Now I know, when a team gets embarrassed, they usually come back and that next week and they tend to play a lot better. Look at the Panthers, although I don't think that they did anything crazy. They did exactly what I thought they were going to do, and we just couldn't stop any of it. So I do think the Packers will play a lot better against the Eagles. That doesn't mean I'm taking the Packers at all at this point, but yeah, a lot of question marks, definitely for sure. So, let's talk about the offense, then we'll get into the defense. I'll talk a little special teams, and then I think we can get into some of the coaching specifics. But the offense, red zone, disaster, 1 for 5 in the red zone. Moved the ball pretty well in between the 20s, but just, we could not finish drives today. That's definitely a stat that puts that on the wall right there. For Jordan Love and how good he has been, and I saw a lot of that over on the interwebs, there were a lot of balls into double and triple coverage today too. That one interception was into triple coverage. That was in the win, granted, but it was way too much to the right. Just kind of forcing it. And then nearly through the pick six on the 4th and 8 that the defender just flat out dropped. I don't know how that guy dropped that ball or why we decided to go for it on 4th and 8 with 11 minutes to go in the game anyway. But just some head scratchers right there with this defense and what they were doing, what Matt LaFleur did at the end there. Quick slants, quick and outs, stuff over the middle. Dinking and dunking, basically, that really, started to get them some success. Then you build off the running game off of that. Now, I know the kind of thought of that is, well, then you're eventually going to make a mistake. And with the Packers these days, with penalties, they probably would make a mistake. Hasn't been clean. Hasn't been good. Screen passes. What is Matt LaFleur's obsession with the screen passes? I'm just asking for a friend, because it definitely killed multiple drives, particularly the 3rd and 3 screen to Emmanuel Wilson that lost 5 yards, setting up that 4th and 8. He did it more than a couple times from before. He admitted it too, and he said it was bad play calling. Well, then okay. I think that he's a bad game designer, game manager, but the sequence of his play calling just has me, and I'm sure all of Packers Nation, just up in fits. It really does feel like it's a stale offensive scheme. Kind of feels that way. I think they can go in spurts. I think they've shown flashes of brilliance. But when you call something like that today, it's just predictable. Like, the Carolina's defense is not anything to write home about. Granted, if this is Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns, or another formidable defense, okay, I can understand that. I can get behind that type of thinking, but I just think opponents can predict, what's coming. Horizontal passing games get repeatedly blown up repeatedly. And then I think to boot, the offensive line struggles anywhere from missed blitz pickups. Today there was more than that middle linebacker just timed it up really well up the A gap, right up the middle. Just brutal. Poor run blocking too. It's not helping out. Josh Jacobs and crew, especially if that is your game plan and you are wanting to run the ball effectively. I don't know. Maybe you need to turn on tape from what the Panthers are doing, because the Panthers got all these backups in on their offensive line, and they are continuing to cook. Granted, they're putting a lot of energy and emphasis in that too. Totally understand that. That's what that team's identity is, and they do it pretty darn well. But I don't know. Something's just, if it's the coaching, if it's the technique, if it's the scheme, it's a combination of all that stuff. Savion Williams, stick over the offensive side of the ball, fumbled on that opening drive in the red zone. I was texting Jordan about this too, and he really feels, I'm going to talk for Jordan. He really feels like that was the momentum. Like they couldn't really get back after that, which I kind of feel like is petty. You should be able to come back from that. That was the first place series, So I don't know. It's just tough. And granted, Savion Williams too for that was wanting to gain a couple extra yards. But then you have, 3, 4, 5 dudes in white jerseys spearing at you, trying to pop that ball out. So, and again, too, just more wide receiver screenplays. Just, I don't know what it is with him. Like, I think 75% of his play calling sheet is wide receiver screenplays. It's got to be, because there's so many of them. It's ridiculous. That and running out of shotgun is like just Matt LaFleur bread and butter, everybody. The 4th and 8 decision. I mean, most of the time I'm like, hell yes, let's get aggressive. Let's do this. That makes sense to me, especially as somebody who kind of teeters and totters and, not being aggressive to not doing enough, being too conservative, kind of staying in that middle point. I love when Matt LaFleur goes aggressive, but not this time. You got to take those points. It gives us the points. I felt like, it would have helped us win the game or at least tie it, for that part on this. Yeah, just kind of head scratcher, It would have tied the game, likely would have been overtime. Some statistical outputs, but Jordan Love, 29 to 37, 273 yards and an interception. Josh Jacobs, 17 carries, 87 yards for 5.1 average and 1 touchdown. Romeo Doubs, 7 catches for 91 yards, most consistent on the day. Christian Watson, 2 catches, 58 yards. That long of 52, that was a big one. And then Luke Musgrave, 3 catches, 34 yards. He did step up and came in after the Kraft injury, and he's going to need to have to step up quite a bit. That's going to be really tough without Tucker Kraft. It just really is. He's one of the better yards after catch or Kraft yak and cheese tight ends in the league, and he blocks really well too. Luke Musgrave is going to need to get his timing down in the passing game, because that's more of what he's going to have to offer in this offense rather than, coming in line and being able to help block, chip. Let's try to see him chip a little bit today. He's just not that good at it, to be honest. I mean, so, that's just brutal. I mean, I don't know. Someone was mentioning trying to get Mercedes Lewis, off the Broncos tight end practice squad. Yeah, I mean, maybe, the ageless wonder. I'm sure that Gutekunst, depending on what the Kraft news is, he'll have some sort of game plan. They also have Josh Weil, who was on the Tennessee Titans and was playing pretty good. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he comes in and he steps up. And he signs someone else to the practice squad. Matthew Golden went out with a shoulder injury. Aaron Banks had a stinger and didn't return. His consistent up and down, always injured, never really that available. Continues to happen throughout this year. Dontavian Wicks already out with the groin injury. Christian Watson, he did clear the concussion protocol, but was definitely limited. This team Matt LaFleur wants this team to be a run-first offense, but the offensive line can't consistently run block. I'm going to say that one again. Matt LaFleur wants this team to be a run-first offense, but the offensive line can't consistently run block well. When they pass, play calling feels conservative and predictable. Let me know what you guys think. I don't think that they trust Jordan Love right now to air it out. And then when they do give it to him, he's throwing in triple coverage. So I think for the most part, Jordan Love has had a very, very excellent season. But why you're trying to fit those balls? Favre was a gunslinger. I don't know if he was that much of a gunslinger. So you know what? I just think that there's more to want on this offense. Like I said in the second half for the Steelers for those 20 straight completions. Whatever you're doing in that recipe, let's mix that up 100 different variations and start putting that on the play call sheets. And then every once in a blue moon, mix in a wide receiver screen. When it makes sense. When they're sending a lot of pressure, they have more people in the box. Whatever. Like I think those are times to be able to do it, not just ad nauseum for this team. But let's move over to the defense. We definitely held them, but definitely not when it mattered. Rico Dowdle had a day against us. Now I know the Panthers are a very good rushing team, so I'm going to give them flowers where flowers are due. Even with their backup offensive line, they definitely cooked us. They really did. I said this on X, but a 3rd and 2, you might as well just give the ball to the Panthers and march that to a first down because that's just automatic. Like the Packers were not going to stop that today. The Panthers had 265 total yards, 4.9 yards per play. Bryce Young, 11 of 20, 102 yards, 1 interception with a 48.3 rating, and somehow still won. That's how bad this game was for the Packers. Held them to 16 points, so no doubt for a defense to be able to do that, that should be enough to win, especially with that Xavier McKinney interception too as well, which was the only forced turnover for the Packers. But like I said, Rico Dowdle, 25 carries, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns for a 5.2 average. Couldn't tackle, missed gap assignments. There was multiple things that were going on. The Colby Wooden injury definitely hurts. He's been one of our better players and run defenders this year. That just absolutely killed the interior of our run defense. So that was brutal. Only the one sack, the strip sack that Xavier McKinney had. Micah Parsons had 0 pressures in this game. I think that's first time in his career. Rashawn Gary, there was a no-show from Rashawn Gary today. Against the Panthers, like I've said, a Panthers backup offensive line that was injured, but you still could not get home on them. And it's not like they were doing anything crazy that like the Cowboys, dinking and dunking or other teams have done on us. Bryce Young felt like he had some time in the pocket, and extended, more than a few plays with his legs. The penalties continue for this team. I don't know. Like I told you, a lot of this year was going to come down to penalties and execution. They're catching the football. Jordan Love has a really good completion percentage, the best I think he's ever had, in his career so far. So they're catching the football. It's just the execution that's going down the drain, and it is going down the drain. Keyshawn Nixon had a brutal 3rd down penalty that extended that touchdown drive for the Panthers. Can't have that. That doesn't happen. I don't know. Maybe it's 3 points. Maybe they don't score at all. I'm not sure. Right. But it's definitely becoming a weekly issue. It really is. It's atrocious. But there were some bright spots. I'll give Xavier McKinney his flowers. I'm going to give Edrin Cooper a lot of love. Isaiah McDuffie, I thought he did pretty good in some run stuff and some run fits. But, it keeps coming back to a couple of key issues. The defense just cannot get a stop when the offense needs it the most. That's just how it feels like to me. The interior of this defensive line for the run defense is bad, and it's really, really bad without Colby Wooden. Tackling, I don't think, was up to par today at all either. It was pretty bad. And then, you can't get pressure. And then when you can't get pressure, it kills you. You're able to, complete those passes that Bryce Young did. You have some time in the pocket. This is a recipe for disaster. Special teams. So the kicking situation is definitely a mess. McManus missed another crucial field goal, and he's now 3 of 8 for field goals outside of the red zone this season. Obviously, something's not wrong with him. Something is wrong with him. Quad injury. Lucas Haversack wasn't inactive despite being perfect. 10 for 10, with that franchise record 61-yarder. I don't know. Why? What do you guys think? Why do we keep trotting out an injured kicker when you have a perfect alternative? I don't know. It definitely cost the team 3 points and a 3-point loss. Those kicks matter. So, Matt LaFleur did mention that, too, that he was battling it. But it just brings me back to why is he active over Haversack? Let the guy heal. That's why you got 2 kickers. Oh Lord, everybody, let's get into the coaching and game management on this. The man, Matt LaFleur is rightfully so going to be under fire. Under fire is a 5-2-1 team, but definitely deserved. It was just, what do you guys think? Was this more on the coaching or was this more on the players? Maybe you guys think it was both. To me, I think that this is more on the coaches. Granted, Jordan Love shouldn't be throwing fucking bombs into three, triple coverage, no doubt, for sure. 4th and 8th, I talked about this with 11 minutes left, but instead of going for that field goal, make it, field goal to tie it 13-13, even worse, used a timeout to set up the field, that failed play. And that at that point too, you're missing Kraft, X, Gold Limited. You didn't have many playmakers. Now, granted, Jordan Love is getting out. He's trying to extend the play and he's trying to get another person out there, and his wide receivers really were not doing him any justice on that play. That's for sure. It didn't feel like they were actually trying on that. The 3rd and 3 screen, the called swing pass to Wilson. I talked about this a little bit, but the loss of 5 yards, creating that 4th and 8 situation. What are we doing? Why? Like, I don't have the breadth of knowledge Matt LaFleur has, but yet I have more common sense. So can there be like a common sense play sequencing manager for the Packers? Seriously, like I think that is a critical position at this point right now for Matt LaFleur. Based down, distance, players, scheme, momentum, like the full works. That needs to be on the Packers. And end of the half clock management. I'm sorry I keep laughing, you guys. It just baffles me. Like every week I'm just like, how are we gonna piss away this one and play shitty for 3 quarters? Except this one, he played shitty for all 4 freaking quarters. Let the clock run. Tried the running game repeatedly. Ultimately, ended up getting nothing. Just wouldn't let Jordan Love cook. And then you did, and then he's throwing bad plays. I think another issue of this was as well, besides some more plays over the middle and quick slants, not enough plays in the intermediate where Jordan Love has absolutely been cooking this year. This wasn't enough. Not enough getting Kraft involved in this game too, man. Kraft is probably your best player. So some bigger picture concerns. Play calling has become obviously stale and predictable. It feels like the schemes that worked 3 to 4 years ago are now getting figured out. Feels like doesn't seem to adjust to what's working in game. That's the other thing I think is a big issue. I think Matt LaFleur is a really good like planner, but then when it goes south, he is terrible at in-game adjustments, man. That's the other person that needs to get hired, an expert in-game adjuster, manager. Book it. Heater tonight. The run first mentality, holding the offense back when the offensive line can't run block. Team consistently plays down to inferior opponents. Cleveland, Carolina, Arizona. I don't know if they're really inferior, but this team just feels really fragile, and it definitely reflects the head coach's approach, in my opinion. And then, to me, he doesn't coach the personnel that he has on the. So, when he's aggressive, it's the wrong time. 4th and 8. When he's conservative, we want more aggression, and just cannot find the right balance or pulse of the game. That's just my 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think. I got some questions for you all, and make sure to put it in the comments. Is Matt LaFleur's play calling holding this offense back, or is it execution? Let me know, guys. The 4th and 8 decision, was LaFleur right to go for it with 11 minutes left, or was it one of the worst decisions of his career? What would you have done? Screen pass obsession. If any of y'all want to dive down deep into that, let me know. Please put some legit merit on it. I'd love to know. What does this team do if Tucker Kraft is lost for this entire season? What do they do at tight end? Do they go out and get somebody from someone else's practice squad? Do they end up trading for somebody? Are you guys concerned of this offensive identity crisis? Are you guys also concerned with the injuries that are piling? Other things I'll put out here too for you guys. And trust me, I'd love if it's just one of these, if it's all these, if it's not, whatever. If you're just listening, that's fine too. But for the defense, where was the pass rush? Where? The run defense was definitely exposed. What do you do with the run defense? What if Colby Wooden's out? I heard rumors maybe they're looking at Tavondre Sweat at a Titans. He's going to cost a pretty penny. He's pretty good, Penalties. What do we do about penalties, guys? Keyshawn Nixon killing us with some of these penalties. And then Jeff Hafley's adjustments. You knew what they were going to do. You knew exactly what they were going to do, and it never really felt like he adjusted. Carolina ran on early downs and got into 4th and short like at nauseum. So why didn't Hafley adjust to their game plan, guys? Should we be concerned about those in-game adjustments? McManus versus Haversack. What do you guys think there? Let me know. Well, that was super frustrating for us all, I'm sure. And to me, it's still one of the most frustrating 5-2-1 teams. It's a good football team. I think that they can play great, but they're not a phenomenally, really, really good team, if that makes any sense. Well, Packers fans, that is all that I have for you tonight. Let me hear all your guys' feelings on this. I'm still upset. I'm still pissed off. It's just the ebbs and flows of the Packers season. You just gotta love it. But yeah, I have new content every Wednesday, Saturday, and Monday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So please make sure to give us a like, sub, and follow us on those platforms. I am on the socials as well at SoundsGouda with 3 A's, and Jordan is at Olsen Jord. But until next time, Packers Nation, we hope that you have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Take care. Go Pack Go.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better.